neighbor and say, neighbor, it's time to tear down the idols and rebuild an altar. Look at somebody else and say, neighbor, it's time to tear down the idols and rebuild an altar. The story of King Josiah is an interesting story because the Bible tells us, and when you read in 2 Chronicles 34, you will find the story, that Josiah was 8 years old. He was a boy when he became king. And Josiah became king, and well, it took him 10 years to, come into his 18th birthday. And around the time when he was 18, the Bible says that the king began to look at the city and look at the house of God, and he began to recognize that some things were wrong. One of the things that I want us in this season to understand about our country and about the Church of Jesus Christ is that we have come into a time when God is saying it's time for us to discern the difference between what is idolatry and what is true worship. We need to be able to differentiate and be able to make a decision concerning whether we are being religious or we have a relationship with the one true and living God. I believe with all my heart that no matter what denomination it is, no matter who's preaching, no matter what we're wearing, no matter what we have on, that this particular season in our country is a time for believers to begin to understand that God has called you and I to tear down the idols. Now you ask me, what is an idol? Because so many times we think of an idol, we only think of what we can see, what's wood and stone. There are a lot of cases where people have idolized places. They have idolized buildings. People have idolized even certain ideologies, certain belief systems. There are people who subscribe to certain ways of looking at life, maybe a worldview, and they have called that an idol. And they can't see it, but it is in control of their thinking and in control of the way that they look at life. Are you with me so far? And so an idol is something that you give, or someone to whom you ascribe more power than you ought to ascribe. When we read in the book of Romans in chapter 1, I always like to go there because in Romans 1, it says that they that knew God, when they knew him, they didn't really worship him as God, but they worshiped everything that was created. And so the creature became the one that was worshipped. They worshiped the trees and the sun and the stars and everybody that's into astrology. It's amazing how some people are still into all of this astrology. What's your sign? And where you were born and what time of the year were you born? And depending on where you were born, they can tell you what your sign is and what the nature of your people. But I found out that if all of these things are controlling your life and your mindset, then you will be out of step and out of sync with the very Spirit of God from whom you came. Are you hearing what I'm saying? An idol is a serious thing. An idol is anything that you believe. Maybe it's a way of thinking, and I'm repeating this for emphasis. There are certain people that even believe certain things about church. They believe that church ought to be like this, and they believe we ought to have. They even idolize the format and the pattern of worship, and they idolize a particular liturgical or ritual performance in the